Gately, and this evening I'm going to show you how to assemble our brand new product, the Flat Pack 3.6 cubic foot internal volume 212 enclosure. Okay, let me tell you what's included in your Flat Pack kit. First thing, we'll start with the small parts. The kit will include 75 of these 1¼ wood screws that you'll use to assemble the enclosure. You'll be using 70 of those in the process, so there's a couple extra. 2 of our 1/4-20 binding post copper bolts, 4 of the nuts, and 4 copper washers. Now the wood panels of the enclosure, starting here with the top or bottom, there's 2 mirror image panels, so you can choose what's the top or bottom of the box so that you can face the port and subwoofers any direction you want in the vehicle. They're dadoed 1/8 of an inch deep, and all of the screw holes are pre-drilled for you. This little guy over here is the side panel of the enclosure where the port is. Opposite of that is our terminal plate with our Gately shield shaped cutout that gets backed by this smaller panel here that'll fasten onto the back of it, and you'll be drilling a couple of small holes into that for our 1/4-20 bolts. This panel here is the port wall, the inner port wall. Here's our baffle assembly. This is our little internal brace on the baffle. The speaker hole cutouts are 11 1/8 of an inch diameter. And this is the back panel of the box, also doubles as a port wall. So a few things that you might like to have for the building process. First thing would be a roll of paper towels. You can use this to wipe up some of the glue mess you make, or dab your tears a little bit, maybe wipe up a little bit of blood, anything like that that might happen. A pencil so that you can maybe mark where you're going to fasten the terminal backing plate. Rubber mallet if you might need to bang on it a little bit to get things to fit together snugly. A little piece of sandpaper if you find any burrs or anything that we didn't catch before we packed it up. And maybe your cell phone in case you need to call us at Gately Audio or one of your box builder buddies to help you finish the assembly. First thing you're going to want to do is do a dry assembly of the enclosure with no screws. So you're just going to fit all the parts together. It's going to kind of snap together like Legos, and you're just making sure that everything goes together and you know what parts go where. So it fits together perfect. So we're going to move on to the assembly process with glue and screws. We're going to actually use one of the top or bottom panels of the box to help us with the assembly process. So what I like to do is I'm going to put the glue in my dado, and I'm going to take the corresponding panel and we're going to fit them together right into their dado notches. It's going to help us hold that together while we put the screws in. I like to drive the screws until they're just flush. A lot of people get really carried away and they'll smush the screw 1/8 of an inch deep into the panel. It's one of the reasons why I like to use a drill with a clutch assembly rather than an impact. It's a little easier to set the clutch to have a precise amount of pressure on the screws. So we want to start here with this port assembly to this side, because this part will be buried behind the back wall of the enclosure. This is the only spot where the screws are behind anything, and it'd be really challenging to get these screws in later in the process. At this point, you have a decision to make. Which way you want your Gately shield on your enclosure to face. This is the top of the Gately shield where it's arced, the bottom has the point. So if your enclosure is going to have the port firing to the left side with the subs facing back, then you would want your Gately shield facing down at this point. Do a little dry fit here as we go. Boom. All right, don't forget to put your glue in. You got to pop this thing back off. Okay, so we're going to apply glue on the whole top here. Try really hard not to have it drip all over the place here. If you tend to be a little bit excessive with the amount of glue that you like to use, have a wet towel aside and wipe that down. I try to use just the right amount. Okay, our next step is to flip the enclosure onto its side, terminal side facing downwards. So we'll pop it out of the bottom panel of the enclosure. We'll set it down on this simple table here. This is where you might use a pencil. Mark the inside of the box around the shield cutout, right down the center, the top and the bottom, and straight out the sides. Nice and simple. That way, I can easily take this guy and drop it in there, almost perfectly centered on those. We fire the screws into that part of the box is done. At this point in the build, this is your first opportunity to be able to drill your holes for the binding post. This is where you use the 5/16 inch drill bit that I listed at the beginning that you would need for the assembly. I like to do it now. It makes it a lot easier to get any of the sawdust out of or the drill shrapnel out of the inside of the box before you put the bottom on. Now, I'm just gonna eyeball these 2 holes right in the center there. If you need to take measurements to get your alignment just right, then you're welcome to do that. But I just like to kind of send it in there. All right. Last step in the assembly of the box. We're gonna glue and screw the bottom panel onto the box. We know that this fits because we just took it apart. It was already dry fit together. Don't forget to put your glue in, because if you just put a bunch of screws in, the box is gonna leak like crazy and rattle and break the screws off and fall apart, and we all look like bozos. There it is, completely assembled. Last thing you have to do is wire up your wires with your ring terminals and install your binding posts. And then you're ready to put it in the vehicle. This is the quick, simple, I want this thing to work. Let's get it in the car as quickly and smoothly as possible. There's a lot more that can be done with these. You could sand and stain all these panels before assembly. You can paint it. You can engrave into it if you like. You know, 2-tone versions of this. The possibilities are endless. Have a good time with it. Enjoy. There's going to be more models. We already have on deck a single 15-inch version of this, single 12, double 10, and we'll see how it goes from there.